All right, joined now by former PC Friar, three-time NBA champion Dickey Simpkins of the Chicago Bulls. Dickey, thanks so much for joining me. Hope you're staying safe and sane right now during this pandemic. How are things where you are?
Yeah, we're staying bunkered down. The family and I are staying bunkered down. Everybody's got a routine, and the kids are doing their school stuff. Two college kids
Wow.
doing their school stuff, and two kids, middle school and elementary school, doing their stuff. So everybody's kind of operating with a good routine. So we're staying at home, staying in place.
Nice. Yeah, you got the whole crew there. Love the backdrop of the Larry O'Brien trophies behind you. We're going to talk about all those Bulls years and some of your time at PC coming up in just a bit. How is your job different? I guess you're a scout for the Wizards. When did things change? I guess early in March they took you off the road, or how is your job different now?
Yeah, things changed right when the conference tournament started. So I was in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament to scout that event. And the day before the tournament started, or the day of the tournament starting, was when they announced that the second day of all the tournaments, there would be no fans. And so we started coming off the road as scouts. I immediately came back home. And on my route back home that next day, when I landed for my connection, then I saw all the reports that all the conference tournaments started shutting down one by one. So I think that was the 15th when everything started, or the 17th, I can't remember. So still working. Things have changed as far as just doing work from home, watching a lot of video on college prospects and conference calls, but we're still moving along with the NBA draft process.
All right, so as you're trying to get ready for the draft, we're hoping to have an NBA season at some point. One of the good things about everyone being quarantined is everyone is just devouring the content of this Last Dance Bulls documentary. As a member of that team, how long had you known that this documentary was coming out, and how many people are, like me, hitting you up now about stories from those teams in that era?
Well, I kind of started to know about the documentary coming out last year. It was starting to talk about the documentary, and I was excited, like everybody else, to start seeing the actual footage. And obviously, there's being connected to those teams in that last championship. There's been a lot of people reaching out to get my perspective or stories or interviews on the Last Dance and my experience with that. So it's been great. It's been fun. I mean, there's always going to be something that's in history that can never be taken away, and it was just great being a part of it. It's great that it's coming out now. This Last Dance, it's just great to see it.
So you played your college ball, obviously, at Providence College. To join an organization like the Bulls, with when you had joined them, had already won titles, and to join them and to win three more, what was it like entering that organization in the mid-90s when that team was the most famous thing in the world?
Well, it was amazing to be drafted by the Chicago Bulls. Like you said, they had already had championships. They already had a brand. Everybody knew about the Chicago Bulls. When I got drafted, it was kind of, I was like, man, I'm not going to get a chance to play with Michael Jordan, because that was when he took a sabbatical and went to baseball. What's funny is life kind of evolves. Things change at the drop of a hat. And watching Michael Jordan throughout college, throughout high school, and then all of a sudden turn around, and in December of that year of 1994, he's starting to practice with us and prepared to come back, was just amazing. So to get drafted by the Chicago Bulls was an amazing feel. And then in my rookie season, when it became December, when MJ started coming into the facility, and the next thing I know, he was practicing with us, it was just amazing feeling to know that I thought I would never play with Michael Jordan, and now I'm going to get a chance to play with Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so at that point, he was wearing the 45, and then coming back, that 95-96 team, you guys won 72 games, which was the record in the NBA until the Warriors broke it a couple years ago. Was that 96 team, many think it's the greatest team ever. Do you think it was the greatest team ever?
I do. I think it's the greatest team ever. And I'm not just saying that because I played on it. And I know all the debate, the fun debate that we will never know the real answer to, because there's no way to ever play those different generations and different championship teams. But I know it's always fun debate with the Golden State Warrior players saying that they could beat that team. And it's fun debate that lately I heard Shaq say that those Lakers teams could beat this team. It's fun debate. But at the end of the day, for me, MJ is the greatest player to ever play the game. And I believe that that team, those years were the best team ever to be in the NBA. And I would never bet against MJ. I've seen it, I've lived it, and I would never bet against him.
Not to make you feel old, but I watched you guys against the Celtics in December for my 11th birthday in 1995, and getting a ticket to see the Bulls then was something special. I think what everyone is enjoying about this documentary is the behind the scenes stuff, because we've seen all the highlights of all the games, but the camera is getting us into practices, behind the scenes. What was it like at practice every day? Because obviously Michael and the rest of you guys treated practice like the game, so the game was almost easier after how hard you practice. What was it like just showing up to the facility every day?
It was work as usual. It was just a professional environment where it didn't matter how much we were winning, how many championships. It was a team of all professional guys that had been in the league for a while. I was the youngest guy on the team, or one of the two youngest guys, and it was just an environment where it was just so professional. Where you come to work, you do your job, you do your role. We continue to keep our eye on the goal. And then we had the ultimate leader, the best player to ever play the game, setting the tone. I mean, I know, I've been able to win in grassroots, won while I was at Providence, a Big East championship. So I had an understanding of what it took to win. Obviously, my role changed from, having a role of winning the Big East championship to my role changing of being a part of the NBA. But obviously, MJ was a leader and set a tone because he played every game and he practiced every day. And he practiced the way he played. He talked trash, and he made the practices very competitive. But at the end of the day, he set the tone from a leader that everybody brought their A game to practice as well as the game, and kept a professionalism to their role.
I know Jordan has said that he's a little worried that people are going to see what these practices were like and how tough he was on his teammates, and maybe think he wasn't that good of a guy or that nice of a guy. What stories do you have of him behind the scenes pushing you guys through a leadership role, or maybe trying to get the every best last ounce out of you guys to be the best you could be, good or bad? I'm sure there were some times maybe you went home and were cursing about how Jordan was tough that day, and the next day he puts his arm around you. I guess what were his mental tactics with you as teammates?
Well, MJ just set the tone as he works very hard. He performs at a high level, and he expected everybody else to work as hard and perform at the highest level they could, embracing their role. So with anything, you're trying to win an NBA championship, that doesn't just come easy. And anything you're trying to win, anything, the ultimate goal you're trying to get, and you're doing it as a team, there are going to be situations where it's going to be pretty intense, or where the leader is going to set an intense tone. That's just a part of it. I think with today's society, with the way things are with basketball and grassroots, because I'm a guy who dealt with the grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
MJ brought a high intensity level of accountability. I think in today's grassroots of basketball, and today's life of basketball, and just life in general, people want the prize, people want the championship, they want all the money, they want all these things, but they avoid the accountability. And I would just say MJ's level of intensity, tone, how he managed the situation and pushed everybody was just a sign of accountability. If I'm going to be accountable, if I'm going to play at a high level, play like this, I expect for everybody on his team to do the same thing. So I get what he's saying about maybe people will look at him as a bad guy or a mean guy, but I didn't never look at it like that. Was MJ tough? Was MJ tough when I was playing? Yes. Was Phil tough? And then MJ would be tough on you? Yes. But that came with winning the championship, and I understood that and embraced it.
So having Phil Jackson, the Zen master, managing all these personalities. Obviously, Jordan is the greatest. You have Rodman, who's eccentric. You have the dynamic with Jerry Krause and Reinsdorf. Why was Phil Jackson so equipped to manage you guys so well?
Phil just had a major approach of the mental and the calmness about how he went about the business of keeping the cohesiveness with the team and keeping everybody focused on the ultimate goal, which is a championship. And the mental part of it was the biggest aspect of how he attacked or how he made sure the team was on the same page. And he had a calm demeanor and approach, but with firmness on how he led and how he kept us all together. And then ultimately, Phil had this unbelievable way of blending different talent personalities, different brands. You know, everybody had their own brand and then personality and egos. And he had an unbelievable way to blend everything together and make it work. And, you know, one of the things that helps is obviously when you have the best player in the world have respect for you as a coach, that helps you also be able to manage the situation. So it was just his unbelievable knack of the mental approach with calmness on how he got us all to have a cohesive mindset for the ultimate goal.
The first episode, which aired Sunday, first two episodes, you understand that you're going into the last season. You initially had started with Golden State, back with Chicago. You know, Phil calls it the last dance. Scotty's in the last year of his deal. Jerry Krause says Phil is gone. Jordan says, I'm not here unless Phil's here. So everyone understands that it was, in fact, the last dance. How wild was that year just knowing all those outside things were happening and you're still trying to win basketball games on the court?
Yeah, like you said, people don't realize or remember that I was traded to the Golden State Warriors in September for Scott Burrell. So I always joke with Scott Burrell and say, "Hey man, I helped you get a championship ring, man. You owe me for that." So I was in Golden State, so it was funny when I was watching the first couple of episodes of The Last Dance. I was in Golden State. That was the year Sprewell choked Carlissimo. So I had a lot going on that side. So it was funny how I didn't really realize how much was going on at the beginning of that season with the Bulls team because I was with Golden State. But when the great thing about it was Golden State was making a move to trade Joe Smith, I kind of got caught into the casualty of war where they had to waive me to make things work. And as soon as they waived me, my agent calls me a couple of days later and tells me that Jerry Krause called him and said, Phil Jackson and MJ want you back. And so I came back to the Bulls. When I came back, Phil called me up to his office for a meeting and he caught me up to speed with everything. He showed me the document for The Last Dance. He told me where everything was at that time as far as energy and intensity, what was going on, and he told me what he was going to need me to do. And so he caught me up to speed in like the Cliff Notes version. But I wasn't surprised about any of the intensity or energy in between Krause, Phil, MJ, because that had already been building the first 2 years of the championships when I was there. And I wasn't surprised that it hit a boiling point because, you know, it just got to the point where, you know, it gets to where egos, personalities, and then the personal part of business starts to affect where you're now having the mindset of
right,
who is responsible for these championships. And so that became a sticky element to the situation. And I think it became personal. And then it ultimately resulted in this was going to be the last dance. And so everybody knew that. Phil caught me up to speed, and I got jumped right into the fire and the intensity.
Is it almost a shame when you look back that if everyone could have gotten in line, put egos aside, that you guys could have extended the dynasty maybe a couple more years?
I mean, I don't know if I would say it's a shame, but it would have been very interesting to be able to see if we could have won 2 more championships or 3 more championships. I mean, at the end of the day, we'll never know. And yeah, would you have loved for it to work out where we could? Yes, would have loved it. But being in this business, I understand that things can change, people's mentalities change, and organizations have projection views of how they want to move their organization. And whether it's right or wrong, whether it's too early or too late, those are the things that they have to manage. But I would have loved to see us again, at least for one more year. But yeah, it always will leave you with what it could have been, you know.
And so you came in the '98 season. What was it, December of that year, or a little bit later?
I came in about February, about halfway through the season. Yeah.
So when you came back with the team and then going into the playoffs, what would Phil say, or what did Michael and Phil say they would need from you on a nightly basis? Was it, hey, we need these key rebounds, we need this, we need that? Like, what was your specific job to make the Bulls a better team that night?
Well, my specific job was to be ready to add versatility to what we were doing defensively and offensively with the triangle. You know, I had known the triangle, so that, you know, Phil figured that's an easy transition. We need another big who can come in and add versatility defensively when D-Rod either got in foul trouble, when they needed a rest, whatever the case might be, because throughout those playoffs and those finals, Phil decided to play what would be considered now small ball. I mean, we had Tony at the 4, Dennis at the 5, Scotty at the 3, MJ at the 2, Harp at the 1. That would be considered a small ball lineup in today's basketball. But Phil was big on versatility, everybody being able to play every position in the triangle, and he wanted to have mobile and versatility defensively to guard any position. So my role was to just be available for defensive versatility, come into the triangle and do what I'm supposed to do, rebound the ball, and add that energy off the bench.
When you guys were playing Utah, you beat them in '97. Game 6, '98, Jordan steals the ball from Malone. He hits the shot. As a teammate of Jordan, in those final minutes of those close games, did you just have a feeling that he was somehow going to pull it out? Because he was the only person to touch the basketball for the last minute of that game in Game 6 in Salt Lake City. Had you just seen it enough that you sort of knew he was going to pull it out?
Yeah, you know what's funny, and this is not like movie material, but it's like I honestly sat there in those closing minutes of the game, and you knew MJ was going to come up with some kind of play. And when the steal happened on Karl Malone and the game-winning basket happened, that pretty much sealed the deal. I mean, I already knew MJ was the best player ever, but that pretty much sealed the deal that he is on a whole nother planet of the best player ever. When in the critical of the NBA Finals on the road, he comes up with 2 big plays, a defensive play and the game-winning play offensively, pretty much sealed the deal for any debate ever of who the best player of the game is. But I will give LeBron something, though. LeBron did something like that when he came up with that big block. And he came up with that big block. That was a big play. I would equate that to MJ coming up with that steal in the critical. But obviously, Kyrie took the game-winning shot. But nevertheless, MJ's moment right there and me watching it pretty much sealed the deal of him being the best player that ever played this game.
Now, we were talking about before how famous of a team you guys were. Were you on the road? Not only are you guys famous, but you're all 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". You literally can't go anywhere without everyone staring at you. Was it sort of lonely being that famous on those teams, or were you guys able to go out and have a nice dinner and maybe have a drink after a game or after a practice?
Well, I mean, it was like being in a rock band. I mean, it was definitely like a circus. You know, like anything like that, it had its enjoyable moments, and then it had its moments where you just wanted to kind of be to yourself, and that could kind of be difficult. It was probably more easier for me than MJ or Dennis Rodman, but at the same time, every play on that team, we had some level of where people were going to recognize or you're going to draw some attention. So, I enjoyed it in the moment. I understood it and kept it in perspective and knew how to find my spots to have my peaceful moment. I mean, we had to stay in hotels with aliases, names, and we had to enter hotels from the back door or the garage. So we had different tactics to kind of try to minimize and have some type of normal, space. So it was great. I mean, it's nothing like it to describe except being in a rock band on tour, and I enjoyed it. But again, I knew how to keep it in perspective.
Dennis Rodman, we haven't. It seemed his story is coming up on this week's episode. I don't know if he was as famous as Jordan, but he was enormous in those days. He had the wedding dress thing. He was hooking up with Madonna and so forth. What was Dennis Rodman's world like as a teammate?
Hey, D-Rod was an eccentric guy. That's the best way I could put it. But I would tell you this, as eccentric as he was for his brand and the marketing purposes, hey, I get it. The guy came to work every day. He came to work every day. Whatever he was doing off the court from a marketable, eccentric standpoint, I respected D-Rod to the fullest because he came to work every day, a guy grabbing 20 rebounds, 15, 20 rebounds, doing his job, defending guys. I had much respect for him. And the funny part is, I always tell the story of how I played 3 years with Dennis Rodman, and in those 3 years, we had 2 conversations. In 3 years, we had 2 conversations, and people always like, how did that happen? I said, well, D-Rod never talked to anybody, one. And the only 2 times he and I had a conversation was in that 72-10 season, he was hurt, and I was playing in his spot starting at the beginning of the season. And we were on a road trip, and we were on a plane flying somewhere, and he came and sat next to me. And I looked, and I was like shocked that he sat next to me, and he just asked me how I felt like I was playing. I said, I felt like I was doing my job, playing well. And he said, you doing good. And he gave me some pointers and some tips, which I thought was cool. Because at first I was like, man, this guy is never going to say anything to anybody, which, okay, whatever. But he took that moment to sit down and kind of give me some tips and give me a compliment on how I was playing in his place. So I thought that was great. And then the second time we talked was after we won the last championship. We talked in the locker room when we were celebrating. So those were the only 2 times that Dennis Rodman and I had a conversation in 3 years. And then I fast forward and I see Dennis Rodman at the Super Bowl in Phoenix, the year they had it in Phoenix. And I see him at a party, and Dennis talked to me more in that night than he talked to me in 2 years, in the 3 years we played together. So I thought that was always funny. But D-Rod was an eccentric guy. We all know that. But an unbelievable teammate as far as doing his job, the professionalism that he did it, and performing every night. And so I definitely sat and learned a lot from D-Rod. And it will be enjoyable to see his part his part coming up next.
Just a couple more on the Bulls before we move ahead. What is your one MJ story that you tell people? I'm sure you get that all the time, that either encapsulates what kind of guy or player he was, or maybe just something funny or memorable that you guys had.
People always ask me what's one story that's memorable, and I always tell the story of when we were playing the San Antonio Spurs at the United Center, and it was going into halftime. The clock was running down going into halftime. We were on defense. MJ grabs the rebound, and we start off on the break with the last couple of seconds left. And it's MJ dribbling the ball down the middle. It's Scottie Pippen on the left wing, left lane running. And I'm on the right running the lane. Clock's winding down like 5, 4, 3. For sure, option 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 is MJ. And then option 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is Scottie Pippen. I'm zero option. He'll throw it to probably somebody else before he threw it to me. And the clock's running down. And MJ looks off Pip and flings the ball to me to the right wing, in the right lane. I catch it, shoot a 3 off the one-legger, it goes off the glass at the buzzer in, and I keep running. I keep running off the court like I do this on a regular basis, and I run into the locker room. And then when the team gets into the locker room, MJ and everybody's laughing, and I look at MJ and say, "You made the right decision."
That's pretty good. Always got to be ready when you're playing with him, right? You worked with him, right? With the Hornets for a little bit?
Yeah. I worked with MJ. Gave me a call one day when I was on my way to do a TV game for ESPN. I used to be a TV analyst for ESPN. He calls me up one day and he said, "Hey, I want you to come join me down here and work with me with the Hornets." Well, they were the Bobcats at the time, and then we transitioned to the Hornets. So he gave me a call, and I came down and worked with them. And I thought that was an unbelievable feeling for him to give me that call and want me to come work with him. So, I mean, I've always respected our friendship, cherished our friendship. He's been great to me, and it's just been good. So, yeah, I worked 8 years for MJ at the Hornets.
Well, how is he different as a boss and a teammate?
It's about the same. I mean, he's still competitive.
Yeah.
He still wants everybody to do their job and do their role to the highest level. I think he's probably maybe more jokingly. I mean, he joked around a lot as a player and had fun and made jokes and talked trash. I think as an owner, probably intensified a little bit more, joked a little bit more, talked trash. But it's the same MJ, competitive and holding everybody accountable and demanding everybody to do their job. I would probably say the only difference, probably more joking and more having fun.
Nice. What do you tell your kids now who are probably LeBron fans or KD fans or Steph Curry fans about your era and why MJ is better than LeBron or any of these other guys that maybe your kids grew up in? How cool is it that you show your kids, hey, I was part of these teams?
Yeah, I mean, my kids get a kick out of it. They get a kick out of kids that are in their classes asking them about it. And, I had my grassroots program in Chicago and had a lot of kids come through there and play in the program and go off to the NBA, go play in Europe, and they always ask about it. But obviously, this is a different era, different time of basketball, and the kids of the day are fond about LeBron and Kobe and the late Kobe Bryant and obviously Steph Curry and obviously KD. And all those guys were unbelievable players and are unbelievable players in their own right. I just tell them, and I hear the new generation guys talking about, hey, older generations always talking about how tough and physical and this and that, which is true. But I'm also a guy that embraces the evolution of the game and the evolution of the eras and the generations. So I understand. But at the end of the day, the one deciding factor for MJ being the best player ever, in my eyes, is the mental piece. Mm-hmm. He just had a killer mentality all the time, and everything was going to ride on how he dictated the outcome of the game, and he was going to take on the outcome of the game. That's just what his mentality was, and he wasn't going to budge from that. And so you're going to win or lose on him dictating this game, and I think that's the deciding factor, the mentality. And at the end of the day, he brought in a new era, because before that, everybody was kind of, liked Julius Erving. Everybody would it was Julius Erving. And then it became MJ. So the deciding factor for me is two things. MJ's mentality makes him the greatest player ever. And then the second thing is, when anybody ever says anything, whether in the business world, whether in the sports world, whatever world or space you're in, they always say, you're the MJ of this. You're the MJ of that. You're the MJ of this. Until that changes to one of those other guys' names, MJ will always be the best player ever.
Nice. And before I let you go, how much are you keeping up with the PC Friars? Obviously, they would have went to the dance again this year. It would have been 6 and 7 years. How proud of you, of the Friars, how far they've come with Ed Cooley in recent years?
I'm very proud of the Friars. I keep up with them on a regular basis. Ed Cooley and I are good, very good friends. I remember Ed used to come up and play basketball with us when I was there at PC, and he used to come up and play. So we've been friends since the early '90s. I'm so happy for his success. I'm so happy with how he's brought along Providence College and keeps Providence College relevant, keeps them competitive, and keeps the talent rolling in. And I think Ed's been a great coach for Providence College, and it's always good to see how the campus and the city is continuing to grow when I come back, because it was like Gotham City when I was there. But it was fun though. It was fun. My Providence days. Providence is my family. I
Mhm.
spent a lot of great years there. It's my family, and I keep up with those guys. And obviously, I'm there scouting some of those guys from time to time also.
You had some good teams with the Friars. You mentioned winning the Big East. That was some tough years in the Big East. What do you remember most about your Providence College career when you were a Friar?
I think back on college life. I mean, I learned a lot. I grew up a lot in those 4 years in Providence. I think about the guys that I played with. I mean, I remember my freshman year, I played with Eric Murdoch, and Eric Murdoch ended up being a first round draft pick. And Eric Murdoch was like our MJ of Providence college basketball at that time. I remember us growing. We were like the number 4 or number 5 recruiting class coming into college that year, behind North Carolina, Duke, I think Kansas. And so I just remember us growing together. Us 5 guys coming in: Mike Smith, myself, Rob Phelps, Franklin Weston, and Troy Brown. We grew together. We would have loved to win sooner than we won, but at the end of the day, we grew together in a process that delivered Providence College the first Big East championship that they had ever had. So my fondest moments would be the guys that I played with, um, growing up in that city, in that college life, and then ultimately bringing Providence a Big East championship. That was unbelievable at Madison Square Garden.
Awesome. And are you watching the Last Dance? Are you going to be watching it every Sunday? Were you interviewed at all for it?
I wasn't interviewed. I wasn't interviewed for the show, but from what I understand, I mean, obviously, there's going to be segments in there where I'm in the video and all
Sure.
those things. But yes, I'm going to be watching it every Sunday. Can't wait to watch it this Sunday. It's like almost how excited I am to watch any TV show that I have that come, like Power, the show Power. I feel like I'm. This is the Last Dance is doing a couple of things. It's replacing my TV shows that have ended, and is kind of taking your mind away from the global crisis we have
Yeah.
going on right now that we're trying to get out of. So yes, I'm excited about watching it on Sunday.
How much of it are you like, oh, I remember that? I guess because the episode they've shown so far, you hadn't really joined the team quite yet. But how much do you think will come back, and how much do you think will be like, oh, I forgot about that loss or that win? Or does it all sort of come back to you, or do you forget a lot because it's been so long?
Oh no, a lot of it. I'm thinking a lot of it will come back. I mean, it's funny. The first couple of episodes was fun to watch because I got to see relive some of the MJ early days of college and NBA when I was in high school and watching them in college and watching the NBA. So I remember growing up MJ, and then they had a couple of scenes in there where I was when he was kind of getting on Tony Kukoc. I was standing right behind Tony, so that brought back memories of how those days were.
Yeah.
And I had that looking at Tony like, oh man, it's not going to be a good practice for you right here. MJ is already on you, so the memories come back. The memories come back quickly, and it's been very enjoyable. It was enjoyable sitting on the couch watching both
Yeah.
episodes. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see what's coming next.
Last question, I guess, because the breakup wasn't that great with Phil and Michael and Pippen and some of the rest of you guys. Have you guys done any sort of 15, 20-year reunion at the United Center? Have you guys all gotten together since that season?
No, we haven't done any reunion. I mean, I still communicate with pretty much all the guys in some fashion or form, whether through text, whether through a phone call, or whether I see them at some point in time. I
Mhm.
think I talked to Scott Burrell yesterday. I talked to MJ on a regular basis. I talked to Ron Harper about 2 weeks ago. I talked to Pippen. I talked to Pip through text about a month ago because I was at Vanderbilt watching his son play.
Oh, cool.
And I see Steve from time to time. Talk to Judd through text messages. I see him during the season because he's with the Knicks. I talk to Randy Brown on a regular basis. I talk to Bill Winnington. Yeah, so everybody that's kind of still staying in communication. It's kind of hard to track down Luke sometimes, but and I talk to Phil through text messages. So I stay in contact with everybody from time to time. So that's been good.
Good stuff, Dickey Simpkins. Thanks so much for taking so much of your time. Got those 3 trophies behind you, the 3 rings. So congrats on a great career in the NBA and everything you did at PC. And hopefully we'll catch up soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And it's been enjoyable talking about it, reliving the days.
That's right. Thank you.